Hey, welcome to just part 4 of the continuation of the Phillips Curve. I believe it's chapter 18, and I'm at about the middle point of page 277, where it says monitors asserted that point B, of figure 18.4 is unstable and can only persist as long as workers are fooled into believing that the money wage uh, increases they received are equivalent to real wage increases. But inflationary expectations adapt to the actual higher inflation rate after a time. Once workers increase their inflationary expectations to capital P, then the short run Phillips curve, or SRPC, shifts out because their expectations of the underlying rate of price inflation have risen. The labor market when well their labor market will then settle at point C, which is consistent with the new higher expected inflation rate. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, please comment, please hit the bell, and like and share. The path the labor market takes as inflationary expectations adjust to the actual inflation rate and the SRPC shifts, that is from point B to point C or from point D to point E when the expected inflation rate has shifted to capital P. It is an empirical matter, but for monetarists, once inflationary expectations have fully adjusted to the current inflation rate at points C and E, for example, the economy will return to the natural rate of unemployment, or capital U. For Friedman, the short-run dynamics of the labor market were driven by the capacity of the government to fool workers into believing that the inflation rate is lower than the actual inflation rate. As long as the actual rate of inflation is underestimated by workers, the government can maintain the unemployment rate below the natural rate, but at a cost of rising inflation. This narrative seeks to explain mass unemployment in the same way. This would occur when the economy is operating with the unemployment rate to the right of the capital U in figure 18.4. The Friedman interpretation is the mass unemployment occurs when workers would think the real wage implied by a nominal wage offered is too low, because they wrongly believe that inflation is higher than it is. We slide down the short-run Phillips curve with unemployment rising above the natural rate, actual inflation below expected inflation, and workers believing that the real wage offers are too low to accept. As a consequence, they start quitting their jobs and or refuse to take new job offers, thinking it is better to search for positions which offer higher real wages. Once they realize they have mistakenly thought inflation was higher than it actually is, they start to accept the job offers at the current money wage. Levels, thus increasing the labor supply in the economy moves back up a short-run Phillips curve towards the natural rate of unemployment, or capital U. Friedman was thus forced to explain changes in unemployment in terms of swings in the supply of labor that are driven by a misconception of the actual inflation rate. At the empirical level, this theory predicts that quit rates will fall as employment rises. If the quit rate is indeed countercyclical, the resulting changes in labor market or labor supply will be consistent with Friedman's theory. However, the empirical evidence is that quit rates are pro-cyclical, which means that they rise when the labor market is strong and workers feel confident about their chances of securing new jobs after quitting their current jobs, and fall when the labor market is weak and workers fear ongoing unemployment. This is exactly the opposite of what would be required to sustain Friedman's natural rate theory. American economist Lester Thurow, summarized this issue succinctly. In quotes, why do quits rise in booms and fall in recessions? If recessions are due to informational mistakes, quits should rise in recession and fall in booms, just the reverse of what happens in the real world. The introduction of the role of inflationary expectation in the Phillips curve focused on attention on how such expectations are formed. What behavioral models could be invoked to capture expectations? There were two main theories advanced by economists. A, adaptive expectations, and later B, rational expectations. Both theories considered the formation of expectations to be indigenous to the economic system, that is, developments within the system determine how workers and firms foresee the future course of inflation. The algebra of the expectations augment Phillips curve. And again, I'm not very good at algebra, so I'm going to skip the actual algebra itself and just read the sentences in between. Anyway, so let's see. Here we present a more analytical version of the Friedman natural rate hypothesis. The original Phillips curve related the growth of money wages to the unemployment rate. Friedman claimed that the simple version of the Phillips curve, whether it was specified in its original form or in the price inflation form, overlooked the fact that workers would be concerned about the growth in real wages. In other words, the rate of money wages growth would be influenced by the expected inflation rate, independently of the state of the labor market. The conjecture led Friedman to incorporate a term for the influence of inflationary expectations in the wage bargaining process in the wage Phillips curve. In the addition, term P represents the inflationary expectations that are formed by workers, which condition the wage bargaining process. We assume that the coefficient lies between 0 and 1. If then wage inflation will only depend on the state of the labor market captured by the excess demand term. Then any changes in inflationary expectation is passed on fully to wages growth. We assume that workers' expectations of inflation in period T are based on price inflation from the previous period T minus 1. T minus 1. They then bargain for wages growth in period T based on these inflationary expectations. Expectations augment Phillips curve, or EAPC, can be written as, again, I'm not going to go through that part, where again the constant term is A equals A 0 plus Y, or year, I think, I'm not sure, I can't remember. In terms of figure 18.4, the inflationary expectations term on the right-hand side of the equation, 18.6, shifts the short-run Phillips curve from P equals A to BU. After the EAPC replaced the simple Phillips curve as the main framework for considering the relationship between inflation and unemployment, economists began to focus on the value of P. Many econometric studies were conducted to estimate its value. Why does the value of the underscore P matter? Friedman defined as long-run stable inflation rate to be when workers' inflationary expectations equally the actual rate of inflation. At this point, he claimed the economy would be operating at the natural rate of unemployment. In that case, the EAPC would collapse to what is referred to as the long-run steady state Phillips curve. We replace capital P by P in the equation 18.6. It rearranges the equation to give. I'll try to read this one. Capital P 1 minus lowercase p equals a minus bu. This relationship should be examined carefully because it looks similar to the short-run Phillips curve equation 18.4, which I didn't read, but anyway, except the coefficients are now divided by the term 1 minus lowercase p. The negative slope of this long-run Phillips curve minus b slash 1 minus lowercase p is steeper than the slope of the. In other words, yeah, it's yeah, anyway, I'm not going to show that. If you want to see these figures, you'd have to buy the book itself, which you can buy at realprogressives.org. Anyway, so let me kind of keep going. See, so the figure 18.5 depicts the two cases. This is a family of short-run Phillips curve, or SRPC. Two are shown. The Phillips curve is drawn on the assumption that 0 is greater or is not greater than lowercase p is also not greater than 1. It's steeper than the short-run curves, but non-vertical. It means that in the long run there is still a trade-off between the inflation rate and the unemployment rate, but it is a steeper trade-off than occurs in the short run before inflationary expectations adjust upwards to the new inflation rate. The long-run Phillips curve for it is vertical. This means there is no long-run trade-off between inflation and the unemployment rate that can be exploited by the government. Under these assumptions, the economy always tends back to the natural rate of unemployment, capital U. Once inflationary expectations have adjusted to the actual inflation rate, you can now see why the economists embrace this flawed framework where interest in the value of lowercase p. For Keynes, is the value of lowercase p of less than unity maintained their policy position that the government could use expansionary fiscal and monetary policy to reduce the unemployment rate should they consider the current rate to be too high. That would be the interest payments right now. These times. Yeah, because that in itself is expansionary. Interest rates on all U.S. Treasury, which is what the Fed calls debt. When there's interest payments on those, that's new money being put into the overall economy. It's just not direct payments like to us, as consumers, but it is new money being put into the economy. That's what they would call the expansionary period as far as the work goes. And so far, it's actually done pretty well because this day and age in 2023, the interest payments have actually helped keep us out of a recession due to the fact that United States government, Congress has not really done any other deficit spending as they did during the pandemic, which is tremendous, but they need to keep it up because once they stopped deficit spending, and went back to general interest rates going up on all revolving credit, like mortgages, credit cards, that kind of stuff, that transferred the wealth from us to the banks and people who actually own or who are the issuers of the credit, which is banks or credit card, which is Citibank and Bank of America, and pretty much all the Visa, all those basically as far as the part goes. So every time interest payments were paid to say $6 trillion in U.S. Treasuries, that money was fed into the economy through different means as far as the part goes. But anyway, Let's see how was that somewhere. Montrose is value of consistent with their claim. Now over that. So you have the natural rate of unemployment emerges out of this framework. We can solve the equation 18.7 for a long run unemployment rate after the relevant algebraic manipulation. We get. I'm going to try to read this. Unemployment equals A slash B. I'm guessing that's aggregate, then business minus purchase, 1 minus price slash business, I'm guessing. Which shows that there's still a trade-off. There's still a trade-off in the long run between unemployment and inflation, as long as underscore p equals 1. Once equals underscore p equals 1, the long run unemployment rate becomes Friedman's natural rate, and the equation represents the case is written as couple u equals a slash b. It means that the Friedman's natural rate hypothesis, there are only two specific factors which influence long run or natural rate of unemployment. A, the rate of growth of maybe that's productivity, which is captured in the A term, and B, the short-term responsiveness of wage inflation to movements in the unemployment rate, or B. Note that given B is assumed to be positive, the term A slash B is positive. As a result, the higher is the growth in productivity, other things being equal. The lower will be the natural rate. The monetarists assumed that productivity growth was a structural phenomenon and invariant to aggregate demand policies. It is clear that in the expectations of augments Phillips Curve framework, the government could only achieve temporary reductions in the unemployment rate below the natural rate as long as it could maintain a wedge between the expected inflation rate and the actual inflation rate. Once the workers' inflationary expectations adjusted, then the trade-off disappeared and the economy would return to the natural rate of unemployment, albeit with higher inflation. Continued attempts at driving down the unemployment rate below the natural rate would, according to the monetarists, would just result in accelerating inflation. And tomorrow I will be going over specification of inflationary expectations. So join me for that. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. I did have to change the category of my content from entertainment, which I've never been entertainment, to education, which is what this is. This is education. So if you like what you see, if you like the way I do it, as far as the color pattern I do here, takes a cap cut as far as the work goes, then please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, and check me out tomorrow. Peace out for now.